In this video, we are going to cover the latest major source book released from Catalyst Games. This book covers a wide region of space and encompasses a multitude of major powers, units, mercenary units, and characters. The book covers a region which has been swamped in chaos for decades following the arrival of Clan Wolf, which then became the Wolf Empire. That empire, though, now appears to be alone. And with that, of course, you know we're going to be talking about Empire alone. To be clear, I don't intend to cover every aspect of the story in great detail in this video, just important moments that I think are worth mentioning. This entire piece was broken up into several sections as I cover the events of the book and the product itself. There will be a spoiler tag added both in terms of me warning of spoilers before we get to them, and there will be a spoiler tag on the screen when we discuss some of these subjects. First, before we delve into the lore impacting subjects in this, I wanted to talk about the book itself, at least in its digital format, the version I have procured from Catalyst Games' web store to do this review. While reading through the book in its digital format, I was very pleased by the numerous high-quality art assets that were used in it. You will see some of these being displayed while we talk about things during this video. There are also great pictures of battle mechs, explosive battles, and absolutely stunning images of planetary systems. Character portraits are done to a high level, much like we saw in prior entries like Tamar Rising and Ilclan. There is a great attention to detail provided in this book towards displaying things in the right context and using these images to enhance those points, or offer breaks via full-page spreads as necessary. The maps in this book are also great quality, showing the situation at the start in great detail, followed by the major changes that happen in the map by its end. This is a great before and after assessment, and really helps the reader contextualize the events of the story just by how much things have changed between January of 3151 and June of 3152. The stated time frame which Empire alone covers. In terms of grammar, I didn't find anything that immediately popped out to me as being wrong, or in need of fixing, or anything of the sort. I have looked over other companies' products and have seen very obvious errors. This has been nice for me not to notice that, though I'm sure if there is a more astute member of the audience, they may be able to pick out things that I couldn't find. Finally, the presentation of information is laid out as simply as it can be in the various sections of the book. This is by no means bad, especially given how complicated the story can get. There are a lot of moving parts in Empire alone, and it is possible to get lost. The latter part isn't because of Catalyst handling the material poorly, it seems to be quite the opposite. There are a lot of people, factions, and events to cover through this, and as a result, the way it's presented is the best way to carry the reader across the finish line in order to understand and digest what is happening throughout. As a final aside, the rules portion of the book describing the playable elements of the campaign is well formatted, easy to understand, and very accessible. Without reading it straight from the book, it can be difficult to encompass all of the events happening in the book. For fans of all the factions involved, there is an immense amount of content and deeper lore. Redemption writes, the novel that covers some of these events and is our only source for things outside of this source book, doesn't scratch the surface of the breadth of the events that take place in comparison to this book. Huge numbers of worlds change hands, and massive political shifts take place inside of the various groups and between them. I really don't want to spoil more than what leaked prior to the book dropping in many ways, and there are multiple twists and turns inside of this story, so I will do a broad overview, without touching on too many of the finer details. The spoilers will be commencing now. We are given the first glimpse into the book as well as much of the surrounding events through the lens of a brilliant piece following Clan Seafox Sawcon Peter Kalasa, entering a discussion with his Khan about the state of the Inner Sphere and the Ilclan, essentially the new clan form Star League. This, in my view, is definitely one of the best written cuts I've seen in a while, acting as both an intriguing short story regarding ambition and loyalty, as well as a primer for the audience. Peter's own plans and machinations are at odds with many factors around him, all of which he is attempting to balance while trying to achieve his own goals. It's a fascinating read. We find the Free Worlds League and Wolf Empire in a quiet lull, though few are happy in the League. The Wolf Empire has managed a stay of execution while Alaric plunged his sword into the heart of the Republic of the Sphere and Jade Falcons. This is also to say nothing of him using and discarding the Wolf Dragoons so callously. Without chaos and invasion on their borders prior to these events, the Wolf Empire appeared strong, and this was only further helped by the HPG blackout still being largely in effect. Only now, the weakness within the Wolf Empire has become too much to ignore for those in the surrounding regions. War is on the way. Interestingly, war had already come to the Free Worlds League in contrast in multiple forms prior to the major events beginning to take place. First, you had the reabsorption of the Regulans. Then, the Marian hegemony had invaded one province, the Duchy of Tamarind Abbey, which had already by the beginning of this book turned into a debacle for the Marians as they became stranded on 3 planets while League forces counterattacked. The Mariks are also some of the main drivers behind border disputes on and off with House Steiner, and also taking place in the region around Tamarind Abbey. It's important to note that Duke Fontaine Marik had been illegally instigating with Steiner in all of this as well, sensing weakness across the border. Inside of the Free Worlds League, one of the provinces is known as the Clan Protectorate, which now has mixed loyalties. Some elements are already eyeing joining the renewed Star League and abandoning their loyalties to the Free Worlds League, while others are more cautious in their support of Alaric's League and have opted to remain in the comfortable situation with House Marik, even if it means betraying their fellow clanners. Meanwhile, the Magistry of Canopus begins this as a de facto ally or vassal of the Capellan Confederation, due to the close bonds between their ruling families. Namely, that Daushan Lau Centrella is the Chancellor of the Capellans, and Ilsa Liao Centrella is the Magistrix of Canopus. The pair are siblings and off-and-on lovers. Even this does not guarantee a long-term alliance in the Inner Sphere, however, and trouble is beginning to brew in Canopus, as well as the latest seeming member of this alliance, the Duchy of Andurien, who had most recently formed a marriage alliance with Canopus. Events begin to change, quickly from here on out. I will be covering this in a short format as to not spoil too much. The Free Worlds League makes extensive territorial gains throughout the book, at the expense of the Marians and the Wolves for the most part, though are distracted and lose some territories once more to the Lyran Commonwealth in smaller operations on their shared border. Most of these gains come without any support from the central government, but are instead local commanders and nobles striking against the weakened Wolf Empire, seeing it as their chance to regain lost worlds. This most extensively covers the Silverhawk Irregulars and the Duchy of Tamarind Abbey. The Silverhawks would find themselves in contention with not only the Wolf garrisons, but eventually with the Clan Protectorate, which had begun to intervene in the conflict as soon as the fall of Stuart, which happened early in the campaign. Protectorate forces would fight across a number of worlds, all on behalf of the Wolf Empire, more or less, and against mercenaries and League forces which had started to reclaim these worlds. By the end of the campaign, some Protectorate units even began to remove the purple from their mechs altogether. Duke Fontaine Marik of Tamarind Abbey would find himself consistently blocked either by limited support or through sanctions in his military actions. He would be responsible in many respects, with some subtle help from other allies such as Christopher Hallis Hughes in dispatching the Marian legions, seizing back worlds which had previously been in the Free Worlds League, and sacking the important world of Illyria. He would also strike against the Wolf Empire using his own troops and mercenaries, namely the Wolves Dragoons. Many of the gains by the League would be opposed by the central government, who under Nicole Hallis Hughes kept trying to avoid an extended conflict and engaging in a full war with the weakened Wolf Empire. Her attempts would inevitably fail, and after the death of a close friend, she would send the entire League to war, with only the Clan Protectorate standing in opposition in the Senate. During all of this, the Wolf Empire is scrambling to survive, as one might expect, cutting deals and cutting corners. They also have to consistently deal with the wrath of the Wolf Dragoons, and I recommend reading Redemption Rights, a Battletech novel, for a more in-depth examination of what happens here. I also have a review for it, and if you'd rather watch that, you can find that linked in the description of this video. The Marian Hegemony, Magistry of Canopus, and the Duchy of Andurien have extensive lore in here as well. I generally try not to spoil the fine details in the descriptions above, for 2 reasons. 1, to prevent this video from being an hour long, and 2, because I think you should definitely look over Empire alone yourself. It's worth your time and your money. Even if none of these factions are your favorites, they're all done masterfully in my opinion in this book. I also feel I can't really delve too deep into this section of lore at this time because it's just too fantastically shocking as to what happens among these factions, barring, to a lesser extent, the Marians. There are a multitude of characters in this book, and some of them are given an examination at the end, being seen as the key players. I enjoyed all of their parts to varying degrees, and in this, I will give a description of who they are, without posting my biases based on my own perception of the lore or preference of faction. Even though I think they're all well written, that doesn't mean I like all of them as a fan of various factions, to be clear. So I don't want to impose my biases in this review. You should come to your own conclusions. Othar. He is the leader of the Wolf Empire as it faces increasing problems. He is also a major star of the Redemption Rites book. Given an impossible task, he does his best to try to take advantage of any opening his opponent gives him in hopes that he can buy enough time for the Empire to be saved by his master, Alaric. Jacinda. An underappreciated clan warrior who never amounted to much prior to the invasion of Terra. Thought of as being unneeded for the invasion, her disgrace at missing the opportunity to invade Earth, which of course would allow her to live out every clanner's dream, has driven her like nothing else could. She has become one of Othar's lieutenants as a result. Radu isn't mentioned much in this book, but he is an important figure in Redemption Rites. You'll see his importance in there. Pravina. She's listed in the book briefly and is the former Duchess of Lorik until it was taken over by the Wolf Empire. She would go on to lead the Yellow Sun Free Guild. She helps petition for one thing I find critical and questionable in the book, which I will touch on at the end. Her true motives, though, appear to be unknown. Nicole Hallis-Hughes, the current Captain General. She's tried to avoid embroiling the League in conflict by sanctioning various factions, but inevitably, with so many of her forces across her territories pushing against the wolves and snatching worlds, seemingly with no end in sight, and with the death of a close associate, she would push the Free Worlds League into open war with the Wolf Empire in June of 3152, effectively when she felt she had no other choice. Fontaine Marik. A lonely figure in many ways, he might be the last of the Brett Mariks, one of the cadet branches of House Marik. He has also taken Christopher Hallis-Hughes, Nicole's brother, under his wing. He is one of the main supporters of the Hallis-Hughes among the traditional Marik family, though he has clearly caused Nicole issues with his warring in Marian space, the Lyran Commonwealth, and Clan Wolf. He is one of the most active and capable leaders in the Free Worlds League. Trenton Marik. He would end up working alongside the Silverhawks and other forces against both Clan Wolf and the Clan Protectorate. Originally sent to stop Gavin Stewart and help him see reason, he ends up defending Stewart and is a major player behind the defeat of the Beta Star cluster, which in shame vanishes without a trace after its loss. Trenton is the nephew of Anson Marik, former Captain General of the Marik-Stewart Commonwealth and cousin of Kenyon Marik. Gavin Stewart, leading the charge against Clan Wolf in his area, and the liberator of Stewart as well as many other worlds. One of the inheritors of the Stewart legacy. Colonel Henry Hack Kincaid. Leader of the Wolf's Dragoons, he works with Marik provinces against the Wolves. He also pushed Nicole Hallis-Hughes to start a war near the beginning, though was ignored, and wants revenge for what the Wolf Empire and Alaric Ward did to the Dragoons, betraying them. For more details, please check Redemption Rites for the full breadth of his story. I wouldn't want to go into the others. As I said, I think the side plot centering around the other powers really shouldn't be spoiled. I'd actually say it's more shocking than the direction of the main conflict itself, even. It just might be the best portion of the book, which is really, really surprising to me, and it really says something. It's a great source book. It's incredibly informative and provides information for the broad conflict never explored in Redemption Rites. The two novels most closely linked to this region in recent times would be Redemption Rites and the lead-up to it, Hunting Season, at least as far as House Marik is concerned. These books are fine, but I definitely feel the source book provides me with a much broader scope, and vastly more data than could be mined from the novels as a whole. The Redemption Rites and Hunting Season add a great deal of context to the characters, in the case of the former, a much more frightening end. I should add that I do have two small criticisms of this scenario, despite this book being, in my view, a must-buy for anyone wanting to delve into the Ilclan era. First, it doesn't really feel as connected to the characters of Hunting Season as they seem to have been omitted, such as Kenyon Marik, who is an important figure, at least in that book. It seems odd to have used his cousin instead, even if it was in a role that he'd have not been in. Finally, the only other small note is near the end from Pravina. She recommends rebranding the Wolf Empire's military to some kind of militia under the banner of the Star League, rationalizing that the banner would in some ways make local populations who increasingly dislike their wolf overlords more likely to join a militia associated with an empire that died 400 years ago, and one which came back only to break apart once more prior to the Blakist attack. It feels like that if this is in any way successful in-universe, which it seems to be hinting that some think it might in-universe, which to me seems to be a disappointing hint, it would seem to me that the people of the Inner Sphere would have failed a perception check on 2+ on a D100 dice, and one which they get to re-roll 5 times upon failure. It pulls me out slightly, as no one in their right mind would say, "Well, I won't fight for Clan Wolf, but I'll definitely fight for the new Star League, controlled by Clan Wolf." Perhaps I'm looking too much into it, but it feels like these were seeds planted for the future, and it seems just very out of bounds with how human beings would rationally assign this. So that's it, folks! That's the review. I really hope everyone enjoyed it. I really encourage you to get this for yourselves and to delve into the web of conflict and negotiations that take place within. This is a surface-level display of what's in here. Really, find out for yourselves how this all shook out. It's fantastic. I have added a link to Catalyst Game Store and to Drive-Thru RPG in the description below. For the record, I am in no way affiliated with the folks at Catalyst. I did not receive a copy from them. I do not get any type of commissions from them. I have no financial association with them in any way, shape, or form. This review is being done purely from my end. I do not have any official support. But with that, thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. There is a YouTube member program to support this channel as well, and I appreciate the support from members immensely. With that, I will catch all of you in the comments section below.